with the brother.
Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to Unapologetic Live. I'm your host, Amala, Epinobi, and Taylor's in the producer's bay.
Yes, I'm not going to say hump day today.
You're not going to say hump day
It's
today.
Wednesday. Happy Wednesday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Guys, today we're going to be talking about a topic that has been trending in the Twitter sphere, and it's about Love is Blind. Do you guys watch reality TV shows? Drop it down in the comments below and let me know. If you do, what reality shows do you watch? I'm not going to lie. My boyfriend and I love watching dating reality shows. Not only do you get to psychoanalyze people as you watch them, but it just has an effect where you value your relationship more so than anything else. When I watch some of the idiocy that happens on these dating shows, I'm like, wow, I really enjoy the space that I'm in. Not that I don't already enjoy it, but it's just like peak appreciation for my significant other.
It's just hard not to feel great about yourself and your current relationship when you're watching other people just wallow in their dysfunction. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's just like the honest truth of like why we like shows like 90 Day Fiancé and Love is Blind. It's
right. Like, we got to be honest about it, guys. There's no reason denying it. That's why a lot of us love it. And if anything, you get to watch some attractive people go through a little bit of turmoil, which, you know, us average Joes also love to experience that as well. However, I really don't like other reality TV shows. Are you just a dating reality TV show, you and your wife, or is it really anything?
No, yeah, we watched Love is Blind. Even like the new spinoff we couldn't get into, but yeah, besides that, not really. Like I watched Man vs. Wild back in the day, old school Survivor, but not much else.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let me know, guys, in the comments down below if that's something that appeals to you, if it's something that you watch, or maybe it doesn't appeal to you, but you watch it anyways. And today, we're going to be asking the question, should there be more fat people in dating reality TV shows? This has been a very hot topic for actually a few weeks now. It started with The Bachelor, which we'll get into, and what is called the body diversity and body positivity movement. People are coming after shows like Love is Blind and The Bachelor and saying, you know what, it's really a problem that you don't have enough fat people present on the castings of these shows. You don't have enough fat women in particular tends to be the main complaint made by these people. But they want fat contestants and men who are attracted to said fat contestants. Now, this has gotten a lot of heat. People have been coming on TV, on Twitter, not on TV. They're not allowed on TV apparently, but going on Twitter and saying your shows need more fat people. It's disgusting that you don't have them. It's a lack of representation. And there's been some backlash, but also a response. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the show Love is Blind, it is hosted by Vanessa and Nick Lachey, and they're a reality TV show for the most part couple. Like, that's their thing.
Well, he was the lead singer of 98 Degrees back in the 90s.
Right.
And yeah, I think that's been the renaissance of his career as a reality show host. Scroll up so they can see the picture of her because I missed it.
Sorry, we lost her. Here's Vanessa.
Yeah.
Vanessa Lachey. Beautiful woman. Now, she hosts the show Love is Blind with her husband, Nick Lachey, and we'll go over, just to give you guys some background on what the show looks like, and the article luckily spells this out in glamour. In the first phase of the show's experiment, men and women are separated in different living quarters and communicate with each other entirely via, quote, pods, which are rooms separated by a wall. They can only hear each other, which theoretically encourages contestants to get to know the person for who they are without thinking about their looks. The next phase of the show is engagement. When couples feel comfortable with each other, they can exit the pods, meet face to face, and get engaged. Then the show follows their relationship once they move back home, meet each other's families, and prepare for their wedding or break up. Once the second phase begins, contestants from the first phase who did not get engaged or find any connection in the pods are not seen again. Now, in the show's first two seasons, contestants who made it to phase 2 just so happened to fit into conventional beauty standards. And I mean, I watched a little bit of Love is Blind, specifically the second season, and there's nothing particularly conventional about them other than they all happen to inhabit healthy bodies. There's people of all different walks of life. Obviously, you have the men and women. You have men and women of different ethnic backgrounds. There was Asians, there was Indians, there was white people, there was black people. So this idea of a conventional beauty standard really is, I understand what they're saying, but what they really mean is that these people inhabited healthy bodies. And that's what was on the show. Much like the people you'll see on The Bachelor and The Bachelorette are pretty fit young people. I would go as far as to say the people on Love is Blind weren't particularly fit. Would you say they were, Taylor? I would just say they're normal, average, healthy people.
Yeah, generally in the average BMI range, one might say,
right.
Of the average American citizen.
You have to walk on eggshells about how we have these conversations, you know? Yeah, I would say contestants that are typically on shows like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette were fitter than the ones on Love is Blind. But all of them in healthy bodies. Anyways, people have a problem with this, and they've come out at Love is Blind, yelled at them for not having enough fat people on the show, and Vanessa Lachey responded. So let's read this article and see what she had to say and see what you guys think about it. Love is Blind host Vanessa Lachey thinks she knows why there's a lack of body diversity among contestants on the Netflix reality dating series. In an interview with Insider, the actor who co-hosts Love is Blind with her husband Nick Lachey suggested that contestants who aren't conventionally thin don't make it past the pod phase on the show because of their insecurities. So here's what she said, quote, "Their whole life, they've been so insecure about being themselves because of this crazy swipe generation that we are living in and this catfishing world that we're in, that they're so afraid to be themselves. I wonder if they truly don't have enough time in those 2 weeks, the 2 weeks they spend in the pods, to find themselves and then be themselves and then find that spouse." Not a particularly articulate response to what people are saying right now, but essentially her comments were saying, you know, we have bigger people who get interviewed for the show and who go through the pods and all that fun stuff, but they're too insecure with themselves to truly reveal themselves to a partner who's willing to take them on as a partner and a spouse, and thus they don't make it on the show. And guess what? People in the body diversity movement and the fat acceptance movement did not like Vanessa Lachey's response. Here's some of the tweets that they put out. Vanessa Lachey blames the lack of body diversity on Love is Blind on people in bigger bodies not having, quote, enough self-confidence, end quote, to get on the show. Be honest and just say you don't want fat people on the show, Vanessa. That's what Maddie Foley said. Kelly Lawler said, not Vanessa Lachey blaming fat people for being, quote, insecure, end quote, for not making it onto Love is Blind. No, I don't have the mental energy for that today. And lastly here, Liz is unimpressed that, of course, Vanessa Lachey thinks people above a size 0 just spend all their time hating themselves too much to hold a conversation. So, we're going to get into an uncomfortable conversation. This is Uncomfortable Conversations with a half-black woman, and I'm your host, Amala Epinobi, to play on Emmanuel A. Show. Let's be honest here, okay? Why do people watch reality dating TV shows? And why are the people on reality dating TV shows typically conventionally attractive, as is the current leftist speaking of the time? And by that, I mean healthy human beings who have quite a bit of symmetry and seem to upkeep their physical appearance. It's because that's what people want to watch. And as soon as there's a massive market to create a show of people with other bodies that happen to be fatter, guess what? And people watch that and it's marketable and it gets revenue and income for it. By all means, make that show. But you don't have to tell the people who've already created things like Love is Blind and The Bachelor that they need to do this, because they don't. They know their market, they know who's watching their show, and they know what those people want to see. And it happens to be people that are in fitter, healthier bodies. Now, should that be something that is offensive to say? You guys can answer that in the comments down below. I don't think so. And we can't deny the fact that certain bodies are healthier than others. And one of these comments here, you know, this girl, this last tweet that we read, of course, Vanessa Lachey thinks people above a size 0 just spend all their time hating themselves too much to hold a conversation. Vanessa Lachey is above a size 0. she's not like a Victoria's Secret supermodel skinny. She's just in a normal, womanly human body that's healthy. And that doesn't have to be a size 0 in order to do that. But we can still acknowledge what is a healthier body rather than what is an overweight and maybe morbidly obese body. But that's what they're fighting for seeing on these shows. And it can be a difficult conversation to confront and have with people, but it's, something that I think we just need to accept. Some bodies are healthier than others, and some people are going to be attracted to healthier bodies. That is typical. That is nearly an objective truth. Of course, there are men and women who fall outside of that, who really love bigger individuals, and that's who they want to date, and that's who they seek out. And that is totally fine. There's no judgment to be placed on those people either. But to ignore what is a reality, that healthier bodies have typically a certain BMI, a certain look to them, is just living in denial. And denial is not just a river in Egypt.
Yeah, we did a poll here on the YouTube channel, Amala Unapologetic on YouTube, if you're not already subscribed. And we asked, do you think that shows like Love is Blind should cast more fat people? So far, 8% say yes, 27% say no, and 65% say don't care.
Which I figured would be the typical response here, because who cares about a reality show like Love is Blind or The Bachelor? But these things seep into other parts of our society. We have a video that'll come out soon with me and Alex Pierce from HRH Collection talking about the body positivity movement and the fat acceptance movement and where this goes, not only for just this pop culture stuff like Love is Blind and The Bachelor, but for real life. We saw a TikTok where somebody was complaining that airplanes weren't accommodating to people who were morbidly obese with the way that they are built, with their seating structure and all of that. And it is again ties into this idea that because you've chosen a reality for yourself or you've chosen a truth for yourself, other people need to subject themselves to your reality and your truth despite their own interests, despite the things that are good for them, despite the things that bring them success, like shows like The Bachelor and Love is Blind. And this is going to continue to happen and seep into our culture so long as we allow it to. Here is one of the comments in response to Vanessa Lachey's response on this Love is Blind topic. This is from Plus Size OTD, who happens to have a profile picture of the trans character in the newest Netflix cartoon series, Dead End Paranormal. Here's the response. This is baffling. Some people are saying that she has a point because, quote, what if they're scared the other person doesn't like fat people, end quote. Their solution is then cast people who are attracted to diverse bodies. The show is literally called Love is Blind, and her saying this is so ironic. But it's really not. I mean, when we're talking about things like health, that's really an important thing, I think, to prioritize, even if it is on a ridiculous reality dating TV show. And like I said, whenever we talk about these stories, like yesterday we did a story about cowboy caviar and this girl getting called out on TikTok for being a cultural appropriator, for making a certain food dish. On its face, these stories are ridiculous. And you look at them and you go, why would I possibly care about that? Because it points to a deeper cultural problem that we're going to continue to face if you don't call these things out and say, no, you don't get to tell people what to do. And this is not only happening with Love is Blind, it's happening with The Bachelor as well. Here's from EliteDaily.com. A new campaign is calling for fat inclusion on The Bachelor franchise. It's called Roses for Everybody and advocates for a body diversity both on and off camera, meaning that they need to hire people behind the scenes that are fat individuals, and they need to hire women and men who are either fat or love fat bodies when seeking out a partner. It's just clown world stuff to me. And when I look at this stuff and see what people are talking about and saying, I notice patterns, and you'll notice with the fat acceptance body positivity movement, it's largely women. And I want you guys to keep an eye out for this. When you hear people talking about fat acceptance or changing the world to be more accommodating to fatness and body positivity, note, by and large, it's going to be women. It's going to be women. And where Vanessa Lachey talks about insecurity, maybe she's wrong, maybe she's right, but there seems to be a distinct amount of insecurity with women who are part of this movement and want to be accepted for something, it shouldn't be demonized. Like somebody who's bigger, I don't go around going, oh my gosh, ha ha, you're so much bigger and blah, blah, you're fatter than I am, all these things. No, you don't do that, but you should accept what is objectively true about human health. And it's not healthy to be in a body that is morbidly obese or morbidly overweight. It simply isn't. And the people who are on these shows, while maybe things like The Bachelor are very super fit, but Love is Blind was just normal individuals. So ask ourselves the question, why are these movements starting to pop up? Why do they express so much cognitive dissonance? And why is it largely pushed by women? I can't really tell you. Obviously, women are more emotional and sensitive to these sort of things, and that's just a fact. So maybe that's what it is. But you largely do not see men saying, I want to see more fat men in this and this and that, and I want more representation for fat male bodies. Have you seen that, Taylor?
No. And it seems like there's, in our culture right now, there's just this war on just common sense and things that people know. And like we were talking before this, and I was like, I feel like we need to like pull up studies on objective beauty standards and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, people just know that on average, men don't prefer like unhealthy, overweight women. Mm-hmm. And that shouldn't be controversial. And yet it is. And if we're talking about this body diversity, it's fine for people to be represented, but also like there's a reason why, like if Kim Kardashian was 300 pounds, she wouldn't be famous. And to pretend like that show would have been what it is by casting someone who's got more body diversity, it's you're just denying a reality and denying something that's just common sense. And we shouldn't have to pretend. It's like, and with the men and women don't have any differences with each other, or that there's more than two sexes, or all these ideas that it's just like they're trying to browbeat us into acknowledging these things, or pretending like things that we know are true are not true, and pretending things that we know are not true are true. And it's just like, dude, everyone just needs to take a chill pill and like, let's just let entertainment be entertainment and let common sense be common sense.
Yeah, and really, when I talk about the subject matter, try to take it out of the realm of just entertainment TV. Because a lot of people can look at this and go, well, this is so stupid. Why are we even talking about this? Why are you covering a topic like this? Think about the broader implication of talking about something like this. Think about the broader implication of these ideas. Think about the COVID-19 pandemic. What did we see for 2 years? Did anybody talk about the effect that obesity has when you have COVID-19? Anybody? Any major news network, would any of them put on a doctor that said you need to care about preventative measures when it comes to your health? You need to care about eating well. You need to care about exercising every day, the amount of sunlight that you get. No, none of them did that. They put on their little death ticker and kept counting it up and counting it up and counting it up and saying, we're just waiting for a vaccine. We're waiting for a vaccine. We're waiting for a vaccine. And when one of these countries, I want to say it was El Salvador, put out an ad talking about, as a preventative measure for COVID-19, maybe you should eat healthy, maybe you should exercise. The amount of heat they got on the internet for saying something like that blew my mind. And it stems from this. It really, really does. The amount of takes that I saw on the internet saying that this is somehow wrong for a TV show to do something like this blows my mind. And it is going to affect people who need to hear what is actually true and don't need a society that accommodates to something that is not good for you. So it's not about having hatred towards people. It's not about looking down on people or anything like that. It's about promoting a culture and a society that does have an ideal. There's this idea nowadays that there's no ideal. There's no ideal way to be a woman. There's no ideal way to be a man. There's no ideal way to be healthy, to be fit, to be a moral individual. And that's bunk, man. It's not true. Of course, there are so many different ways to be a man, a woman, and so many different ways to be healthy. I mean, within reason, of course. Mm-hmm. But this idea that we don't have something that we need to strive towards, and that everybody simply is just born into the world and whatever it is that they are is accepted, and there's nothing to strive, there's nothing to change, there's nothing to move towards, is making a world that is really devoid of meaning. So these things go far past reality TV shows that we watch with our partners every now and then. It really speaks to a larger cultural problem. all across the stage, all across the board. And you can take this and you can apply it anywhere else. Like look at what's happening right now with transgenderism in children. Your kid expresses something to you, right? And that's the truth because your kid expressed it. Your little boy says that they are a girl, and because they said that, that's the truth and that's the reality. There's no ideal. There's no issue with that. There's nothing we should be striving towards. You simply honor everybody for what it is they say they are and just how they've landed. And if you do that, look at the outcomes. Look at the obesity rate in the United States of America. Look at how many people are dying of cardiovascular disease. Look at the rate of transgenderism in young people in America. Look at how many of them are attempting suicide and killing themselves. This cannot last. Like, we cannot continue to foster a society that cannot simply look at things and accept them to be true. And to think that that is the compassionate thing to do or the right thing to do, I think is going to be a major problem that just bites us in the butt down the line.
Yeah, it's literally preventing people from becoming healthier, reducing their risks of dying from diseases like COVID-19 because it's just become this cultural thing where, no, it couldn't possibly be the fact that you're obese that is leading to that increases your risk factors when it's like it's medically true, and yet we're too afraid to say something that could literally save someone's life. And it's the same thing with the gender ideology. We know that the mental health outcomes of pushing affirmative care on kids are negative and can lead to greater suicidal ideation and mental health and greater mental health issues. Honestly, you could even take this as far as to saying, like, you know, like you talked about, we're so afraid of saying that there's any kind of ideal, and you apply that to the denial of differences between men and women and the gender role, that the gender roles are a thing, and that women will be happier. Like the lie is the push by modern day feminism that women will only be happy by rejecting all these gender roles,
right?
And you're actually depriving them of the happiness that they would otherwise achieve. And of course, there's always exceptions to this. Some people, you know, can't help through gaining weight, or their gender dysphoria is a real thing experienced, and some women will not be happier with kids. I mean, you can always point to those exceptions, but generally speaking, pretending like what are general truths, that being fat's not less healthy than being not fat, and that it's not healthy to have this confusion about gender dysphoria, and you should be therapy for that should push you back toward reality rather than further down the path of transitioning it medically, generally speaking. And for women too, like it's okay to acknowledge the differences biologically and in how you think and how you're wired. That's okay to acknowledge that those exist, just using common sense. And pretending like all these things don't exist and imposing this faux reality ends up making people miserable, sicker, and worsens our health as a society.
Right. And the approach to all these things changes. Like, you knowing these things does not mean you have to go up to somebody who's bigger and tell them they need to make a change or anything like that. It doesn't mean anything, but it is just an acknowledgement of what is typically true. And the feminism one is a great example. It is typically true that women will be happier and more fulfilled when they have children. And right now we're telling women, no, you don't need to do that. Focus on your career. You know, just sell your soul to a corporation basically for the rest of your life, and you'll have money and all these things, and you'll be able to travel. And then at the end of the day, you're going to feel so great about yourself. And now, I don't need to walk up to a feminist woman and tell her she needs to have kids. That's not my job. I'm not going to do that at all. But I acknowledge the reality of the situation. I acknowledge what is going to probably have a more positive outcome instead of lying to myself because somebody else has accepted a narrative. And that's exactly the same thing here. I mean, you don't have to go dog on people because of their weight, and I would never advocate that you do that to anybody anyways. But you can accept the reality of what is true and what is typically good for a human individual. And that is that. And it's funny because this conversation in particular is a conversation that people on all sides of the aisle are so uncomfortable having. And it shows you how much of a pervasive problem it is in the United States of America, that it affects everybody and nobody's willing to have the conversation. And when you do, you kind of have to like walk on eggshells a little bit about it because it affects everybody from all walks of life. But even with that being the reality, you should be able to accept what is true. And it doesn't speak to your value. It just speaks to something that should be sought after moving forward. And to think that, you know, these shows should have this imposed on them because people want to feel more accepted for their truth or their reality is just some BS. It's the same thing as just like these diversity quota hirings and affirmative action and all this other stuff. I mean, just allow people to do what it is that they're going to do. And if you want to lead your life the way you want to lead it, by all means do that. Don't just go and try to impose your view or your twisted reality on somebody else, though. Yeah, the feminism example, perfect for that. Perfect for that. And we're going to look back in, 20, 30 years, and we're going to see the problems that arise from that. And you're going to see a lot of women who chose to go the hypermasculine feminist route, and they're going to be like, oh, well, they might not admit this, but oh, wow. Now I've made this choice and now there's no going back, and now I didn't get married and I didn't have kids, or I didn't do this or that. I didn't create a family, and I'm sensing a little bit of regret there. And it's going to be exactly like what we're going to see with health. We're going to see this massive shift to this new movement, and then all these things are going to skyrocket and all these chronic illnesses are going to skyrocket. And then we're going to go, what happened? What did we do? How did we create this problem for ourselves? Or we're not even going to acknowledge the fact that we've created the problem for ourselves. And that's where we're going to land. So I think those are my final thoughts on the issue. Anything else to share?
Okay, my mind just went here. I know it's probably annoying because I feel like I bring up like Marxism on every episode, but I had the thought as you're talking that I've been listening to James Lindsay, who is great at breaking down all this stuff, and basically he talks about how Karl Marx was heavily influenced by this philosopher named Hegel, and Hegel's whole thing, or one of his ideas, is that is essentially like it's an ideology that is theory over reality, and it's utopian thinking. So it's like reality should be this way, and so our theory of how things should be it means that like we should cram reality into our theory, and essentially this worldview that says that nothing should change about you because you're fat, or there's no such thing as gender roles, or there's no such thing as gender period. That is theory, and what they're trying to do is fit reality into their theory and cram it in, even when it's like, okay, yeah, but heart disease begs to differ, and hypertension begs to differ, and the risk factors that you have with COVID-19 for comorbidities beg to differ, and you can't just ignore objective reality because you want to live in this world where theory says that no, we should normalize this living in according to ideology instead of living in reality. And I think, and the same thing, like men are going to be more attracted to you, generally speaking, if you're at a healthy weight, and that is just a simple common sense reality. And yet but theory has become so popularized in our society that we're reinforcing it in Hollywood and on billboards and everywhere we see, and in social media, and all the messaging is it's like theory, and it's like, guys, like we can't forget about reality. Reality makes a difference.
Even on our end of the aisle, there are certain people who will not talk about this subject matter because of how like polarizing it is to talk about, because there's so many people affected by it. You can be affected by it and still acknowledge. Like it's just an acknowledgement, I think. And it's one of, you would think it'd be one of the subject matters that regardless of where you lie politically, you'd be able to have a conversation about it and be honest about it. But in fact, it is probably the hardest conversation to have. Human health and talking about body weight, BMI, all these things. Even though it's just like, okay, guys, we're human beings. We procreate. We typically want to procreate with somebody who is healthy, and it's not only going to be healthy for the duration of their life, but it's going to be healthy enough to take care of the children that you create once you have procreated. And that tends to be fit people who maintain, or at least attempt to maintain their weight and eat healthy and work out and do these things. And to not be able to say that is just such a sign of where we are as a society. And even now there will be comments on this stream about people who don't like the subject matter, but it's one of the most important topics that we should be talking about. Like, as much as we talk about like black on black crime and gang violence and COVID-19 deaths and all these things where we care about human flourishing and we care about who's going to be affected, and we talk about trans kids who are committing suicide and all these things, you want to talk about leading causes of death. This is the conversation that really everybody should be having with one another and making choices about their personal health. I used to work in my left-leaning organization. You guys all know that. And on the walls, there would be little signs that say, like, don't even think about giving anybody advice about physical fitness, about the food habits, about anything regarding weight or size or anything like that. It is inherently fat phobic. It is inherently like patriarchal. Some like stupid shit is what the sign said. And it's like, this is the thing that we should probably engage with the least amount of sensitivity, because it is affecting so many people. It is harming so many lives, and it's going to continue to be a problem until we address it, and we address it honestly. But we can't. Like, even when going into this episode, I'm like, okay, how am I going to say this? How am I going to say this particular part? How am I going to explain exactly what's happening here, for fear of creating tension between people? But honestly, my guys, this is just the truth, baby. Like, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, you're watching a show called Unapologetic. So
you are watching a show called Unapologetic. So sorry. Not sorry.
Yeah, so sorry. Not sorry.
But anyways, guys, I think I don't like to make predictions, but I predict that this is going to continue to be an ongoing conversation. Here is a super chat. JNMan09 says, thank you for all you're doing. Moving back to SoCal, I hope I can thank you or other PragerU people in person. You might just run into me because I'm constantly running around Southern California, although I'm going to be leaving here shortly for just a little while to be on a trip, but we'll let you guys know when that happens. Anyways, yeah, let me know your thoughts on this subject matter and be open about what your thoughts actually are. So often in the past, when I've approached this subject matter, I've just sort of filtered myself and been like, oh, I'm not going to say exactly what I truly think on this one because it's such a sticky subject. Say what you actually think. This life means nothing if you don't express what you actually think, feel, who you actually are. So when you find a subject matter where you feel like, oh, I don't feel, do it. Express yourself. Say it in the comments. This is a safe space for people to express what they actually want to express. So you can talk about it from the reality TV perspective. You can talk about it from the broader perspective, or we can talk about how the ideology that influences the conversations we have surrounding health has infiltrated every other social issue conversation we're having. The fact that we could take an issue like obesity and then plug in transgenderism or feminism or race, and the same conversation is being had just with switching out the nouns, is crazy to me. And it shows how patterned and tribalistic and simplistic our thinking is in this day and age, that we are so willing to distort reality for the sake of comforting our own selves, and for the sake of comforting our own insecurities, for the sake of making ourselves feel better. And there's not a person in this world, I think, that doesn't struggle with their own body image. I am no stranger to that. Taylor, I'm sure, is no stranger to that. I've struggled with body image my entire life, and I will continue to do so moving forward. However, does that mean we don't have conversations about it? Does it mean that we can't bring it up because it's something that we're sensitive to? No, it doesn't. You got to approach the things that you're sensitive to. In fact, identify the things that you are sensitive to and approach them 100% more than you approach anything else. Because that is what strengthens you. That is what makes you a better, more well-rounded person. That's what helps you understand yourself more. And we'll use this show to continue to have these uncomfortable conversations. And you know what? Maybe next week or something, I'll pick something I'm particularly sensitive about and we'll have a discussion about it on the show, because that's what we should be doing day in and day out. Leave no stone unturned.
I want to read a comment real quick from KLR3012. Says, I'm a recovered anorexic. Talking about weight can be triggering, but nothing you've said is triggering for me. Focusing on health and eating in variety and moderation is great.
Yeah, beautiful. And good for you. Good for you. When I was in middle school and high school, was so concerned with how I looked. I would stop eating for days. And this is something that a lot of young women tend to struggle with. And it can be perpetuated by certain things and certain views of what your body is and should be. But we can always talk about what is healthy. I think that's normal and fine. And we can't ignore that there are certain things that people are attracted to. Even with the struggles that I went through as a middle schooler or high schooler, which are very minuscule in comparison to other people, I was never upset to see a Victoria's Secret angel. I was never upset to turn on The Bachelor and see all these beautiful model-looking girls in bikinis or anything like that. Because it's just the acknowledgement of reality. It's the acknowledgement of what is attracted to people, of what people want to give their money to, of what garners revenue. And often that is things like beautiful, skinny, 5'11" women. Or I don't know what supermodel height is, but something like that.
Who knows these days? But I think it's still on the taller side still.
Who knows these days? But that's still true. And the fact that we live in a generation now where you have to like look at your insecurities, then find all of the things that offend you, and then attack the things that offend you, and then make the people change the things that offend you is some BS to me. And you shouldn't be doing that. Just engage with your sensitivities and work out a way with your own self to make yourself stronger and to make yourself able to deal with that. And that's what everybody should be doing. I'm not trying to impose my beliefs on what other people can and should be onto them, and you shouldn't do the same to others. And let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on this particular subject matter. Is this a particularly sensitive subject matter for you? Is this something you tread lightly around? Is it something that you don't like to hear other people talk about? Is it something that you yourself, you don't like to talk about? Leave it in the comments down below. Or is it a free range conversation and you can talk about anything? Drop it in the comments down below and let me know. Is there something that I said that you disagree with? Is there something that I said that you particularly agree with? Is there a point that I should have made that I did not make? Have that conversation down below. Maybe some healthy debate back and forth. And remember, please like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every time we go live, which is normally at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and every time we post a video for you. And we are banging out. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.